The silence inside the shining glass headquarters was shattered by one cold sentence that changed a father's life forever. Hundreds of employees froze as CEO Victor Halden pointed toward the exit with a face completely devoid of compassion. Security guards stepped forward while a hard-working single father stood there holding nothing except a lunch bag and years of loyalty. He hadn't stolen anything. He hadn't broken company rules. His only mistake was arriving 10 minutes late after rushing his sick little daughter to the hospital. As whispers spread through the lobby, no one imagined that only a few days later, the same man would return wearing a perfectly tailored $10,000 suit, and the people who watched him leave in humiliation would witness a moment they would never forget. Before we continue, if you believe kindness always comes back and everyone deserves a second chance, please like this video, comment where you're watching from, share it with your friends, and subscribe to Heartline Stories for more emotional stories that touch the heart. The man's name was Elias Rowan, a 38-year-old widowed father who had spent nearly 11 years working as a maintenance supervisor at Halden Global Industries. Every morning before sunrise, Elias prepared breakfast for his 8-year-old daughter, Mara, braided her hair despite never learning how to do it properly, packed her school lunch, and then hurried to work. Life had never been easy since losing his wife in a tragic car accident 5 years earlier, but he never allowed grief to become an excuse. He worked overtime, skipped vacations, and quietly repaired broken equipment before anyone noticed. Most executives didn't even know his name, yet almost every employee knew that if something stopped working, Elias would somehow fix it before the day ended. On that unforgettable Monday morning, everything collapsed. Mara woke up with a dangerously high fever, forcing Elias to drive her to the emergency clinic before taking her to school. Although he immediately informed his department manager, the message never reached the CEO, who happened to be touring the headquarters that day after announcing a company-wide crackdown on employee punctuality. Victor Halden believed discipline mattered more than personal circumstances. When he saw Elias entering the building 10 minutes late, he demanded an explanation in front of everyone. Before Elias could finish mentioning his daughter, Victor interrupted him, declaring that excuses had no place inside his company. Without reviewing his record or asking anyone else, the CEO fired him on the spot. The lobby became painfully quiet. Elias didn't beg. He simply lowered his eyes, picked up the small cardboard box containing family photographs from his locker, and walked away while hundreds of co-workers watched helplessly. Some wanted to defend him, but fear kept their mouths shut. Elias felt humiliation burning inside him, yet what hurt even more was wondering how he would pay rent, buy medicine, and keep food on the table for Mara. The following days were filled with uncertainty. Job applications disappeared without responses. Bills piled higher on the kitchen counter. At night, after Mara fell asleep, Elias sat alone staring at old family photos, wondering whether he had failed as a father. Still, he refused to let despair win. Every morning he put on his cleanest shirt, smiled for his daughter, and promised that everything would be all right, even though he had no idea how. One rainy afternoon, while helping an elderly neighbor carry groceries upstairs, Elias unexpectedly met a distinguished older gentleman named Graham Mercer. The elderly man quietly thanked him and invited him inside for tea. During their conversation, Graham learned about Elias's dismissal and listened carefully without interrupting. What Elias didn't know was that Graham had quietly built one of the country's largest investment firms before retiring years earlier. He valued character more than resumes, and in Elias he recognized something increasingly rare, integrity that couldn't be taught. Instead of offering sympathy, Graham offered opportunity. He asked Elias to oversee the renovation of several commercial properties owned by his investment group. Within days, Elias organized workers, solved expensive engineering problems, reduced project costs, and impressed everyone through honesty and practical leadership. Graham soon promoted him to operations director for the firm's growing real estate division. Along with the position came a generous salary, company shares, and a wardrobe allowance. For the first time in years, Elias bought a tailored navy blue Italian suit worth nearly $10,000. It wasn't purchased to show wealth. It represented restored dignity. Exactly 1 week after losing everything, Graham asked Elias to accompany him to an important acquisition meeting. The destination happened to be Halden Global Industries. As a sleek black car stopped outside the headquarters, employees gathering near the entrance stared in disbelief. Elias stepped out wearing the elegant suit, polished shoes reflecting the afternoon sunlight, his posture calm and confident. The same security guards who had escorted him out days earlier immediately opened the doors with respect. Inside the lobby, conversations suddenly stopped. Victor Halden emerged from the executive elevators expecting to welcome wealthy investors. His confident smile disappeared the moment he recognized Elias standing beside Graham Mercer. Confusion spread across his face as Graham warmly introduced Elias as the newly appointed operations director representing Mercer Capital, the investment group preparing to purchase a controlling share of Halden Global Industries. The room seemed to freeze. Victor suddenly realized the man he had dismissed without compassion was now sitting across the negotiation table as an equal whose opinion carried enormous influence. Throughout the meeting, Elias remained respectful. He never mentioned the humiliation he had suffered. Instead, he focused entirely on business, proposing employee-centered improvements that emphasized fairness, communication, and respect. Graham admired how Elias never allowed bitterness to replace professionalism. Several weeks later, Mercer Capital officially became the company's largest shareholder. One of the first organizational changes involved creating a new employee welfare program ensuring that no worker would ever again lose a job because of a family emergency without a fair review. Flexible leave policies, emergency childcare assistance, and transparent disciplinary procedures became company standards. Victor Halden eventually resigned after acknowledging that his leadership had been driven by pride instead of humanity. His departure wasn't celebrated. Instead, it became a quiet reminder that power without compassion rarely lasts. Elias never sought revenge. He accepted the position of chief operations executive and continued walking through the same hallways where he had once been publicly humiliated. This time, however, employees greeted him with genuine smiles rather than fearful silence. He made it a habit to learn every worker's name, ask about their families, and personally thank maintenance crews whose work often went unnoticed because he remembered exactly how invisible that job could feel. The greatest reward came one evening when Mara proudly hugged her father after seeing him receive a community leadership award. She smiled and whispered that her mother would have been proud of him. Elias looked toward the sunset outside the auditorium window, feeling that after years of heartbreak, life had finally come full circle. He hadn't become successful because he wore an expensive suit. He became successful because he never allowed hardship to steal his kindness. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, comment, share this video, and subscribe to Heartline Stories. Your support helps us continue bringing inspiring stories that remind the world compassion still exists. Glowing star special request, comment below with one word, kindness, if you believe treating people with respect can change someone's entire life. Sometimes life doesn't reward the loudest voice or the richest person. Sometimes it quietly rewards the one who keeps choosing integrity when no one is watching. Elias lost his job in front of everyone, but he never lost his character. And in the end, it wasn't the $10,000 suit that made people respect him, it was the heart that had remained priceless all along.